feel like that.
Call meeting to order. Can you please stand for the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lower seats, moving flag. This time we'll open the floor for a public hearing on ordinance number 8, 2024, which is the town budget for next year of 2025. Do I have any public comment? Seeing none, we will close the meeting on public hearing. We'll close the public hearing. And open the floor for regular business. Everybody had a chance to review the minutes for last month?
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the regular council meeting minutes for August 5th, 2024. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Gary, Heart of Hagerstown.
We're in the back. Heart of Hagerstown, we have several things going on. Saturday the 14th, we're going to partner with the town and offer a dumpster for a cleanup event. That event is not aimed to clean up yards and landscaping. It's more of let's get rid of the chairs and the mattresses and the junk sitting out behind everybody's house and appliances such as that. So that dumpster will be at the wastewater treatment plant parking lot there on South Washington Street. We will begin pushing that advertisement out this week. I think Chris is also going to maybe do a one call. We had talked about that just to try to get people to clean up. And like I said, not a yard cleanup event, but an event to clean up the trash and the rubbish that's piled in people's alleys and backyards. So that's this month. Fall Festival is going to be on October 12th. We'll be doing street vendors on Main Street like we normally do on the sidewalk. We'll probably get with Keith. You know, it's a debate whether we block parking or not. If we block parking, that takes away from people being able to park right downtown. But it's also a safety standpoint of them walking in and out of cars. So we'll make that decision here with Keith here in the next week or two and try to figure out what's the best plan of attack for that. And then we have Hometown Christmas first Saturday of December, December 7th. There's a group working on that. Have they been in contact with you at all, Keith? Ish.
It's been a little while.
Okay.
I have had a discussion, but like I said, it's probably been 2 months or
Okay.
so at least.
So we'll get a good schedule put together and get back with you guys and let you know what that's going to be. Other than that, that is what I've got.
What was the times that the dumpster will be available? Do you have set times for that?
8 to 12 is what we're saying, right, Chris?
I think we at 9 to 12.
9 to 12.
9 to 12.
And hopefully we'll get a flyer out here soon, like tomorrow.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to bring up the blight grant from the EDC. I reached out, I had several questions for the commissioner, building commissioner, and he answered them to the best of his ability, and the answers that he was giving didn't make sense to me. I've worked with other grants in the past, and what he was saying just didn't line up with what I had previously done. So I did some research into it, and I contacted Sarah Mitchell. She is the EDC's economic development manager. She's the one that's in charge of everything with the blight grant. And what she told me on the phone was that the property ownership requirement is that the town must own the property to be qualified for the blight elimination grant. If the town does not own the property, then they cannot use the grant to demolish a structure. It does not qualify. She said if the town demolishes a property, then it is responsible for all incurred expenses. She did say that the town can place a lien on the property to try to recoup some of those expenses, but that if the lien is not paid, the property then gets placed on a tax sale. And if it is not purchased on the tax sale, then it goes to a commissioner sale, which is also called a deed sale. And she said that bids with that start at $100. So in that case, the town would be out the money with no way to recoup it if the lien is not paid and it goes through to the tax sale and then the deed sale, because if it does go through those stages, it is realistic to purchase it back for $100 depending on how many people are bidding on it. She did say that if the town owns the property prior to demolition, the grant is expected to cover the full demolition cost. The average demolition cost, she said she expects to be around $10,000, but the EDC is allowing $15,000 to provide a $5,000 buffer. She said in this scenario, as long as the town owns the property prior, then there is no repayment required, and the town would not be expected to have any out-of-pocket cost. After I hung up with her, I did a little bit more research, and I did find that additionally there is a 5-year holding period where the town must retain ownership of the property. If the town does not retain ownership for the full 5 years, it will have to repay funds to the EDC on a prorated schedule based on the time the town had possession or ownership. So that is more in line with the grants that I have worked with previously, and this is more of what I was thinking the funds would be allowed for. So I just wanted, first of all, to bring that to the town's attention, because I know that it is, a topic of discussion the last several meetings on the blight projects. My property next door to my home is one of the on your radar, and I want it torn down, demolished as well. I just don't have the funds at the moment to do it, and my concern is if the town does demolish it, then it goes to lien, that I won't be able to pay the lien, and then the town is just out the $10,000 to $15,000. And I don't want that for the town. I don't want the town to have that excess expense.
We appreciate you bringing that information. I know from years past with the grants of the town, as you mentioned, the lot behind the fire station was that way. We had to retain ownership of it. We had to make sure that all those, as you said, were followed in line. Chris, have we got any information from Valerie about
Terry and I discussed this afternoon. We're kind of I feel like we're hearing different things based on when we talked to Valerie, because we both talked to her right at the very beginning of when the grant cycle started. And, or Sarah rather than Valerie, we talked about her and Sarah actually, but, and we tried to call her again this afternoon and she was running off the meeting, so. Yeah.
I'll make a comment on this because I've been a little bit involved in it. Basically, Amy just interested in making sure I understood your situation. So this grant, like you said, is, I will make this comment. It doesn't seem like this grant is a normal light grant. I mean, we have found it to be exceptionally complicated to this point. In the aspect, and I feel comfortable saying this on TV because I think this is accurate, is when we filled out the application for this grant, it even required us to get an estimate for demolition before we could even apply for the grant. So even though Sarah might have told you what the average cost is, we have what it costs to demolish that house, and it far exceeds the amount that she has stated. And it is, to our understanding at this point, what we've been stated is part of this blank application when you turned in your demolition quote that was given to you in this application, is that's what the blight would cover.
Okay.
Okay, so I feel comfortable that in that comment, that might not be accurate. Now, the sheriff's sale and the deed sale and all that, I think is very accurate through that. The thing that we're a little unclear of, and I think probably going forward is the best way to do is to have a meeting where those blight houses in question are invited, where Sarah is here, we're here, so we're all hearing the very same story from the same person, so that we're clear. When the property can be demolished and who owns the property at that time is somewhat a little unclear to me as well, okay? Whether that happens before or after the ownership or the sales, okay? I guess my comment being on town council, and I'm only one speaking, if the town has X amount of dollars in the demolition, if it gets to a deed sale, I'm assuming we would be there to protect our interest in making sure that we hold that property up to what the demolition card or what the lien is against. And if somebody pays more than that and can pay off the lien, then whether that money goes back to the EDC or whether that money comes back to Hagerstown, that's a little unclear too, where that goes. Because what is complicated on this, what we hear, what is complicated is when do you receive the funds? Is the demolition done before or after this process? And who is the ownership of that? I would agree with you, it's a little unusual from what you would normally hear the blight grant. And you're right, Alan's exactly right, on the first blight, it was not a federal blight program. We had to hold it 5 years, that is true. This one, Chris, if I'm looking right, when we read the rules, that's not a part of this one, is it?
I believe that the 5-year holding is a part of that. But the first grant we did, 2015, 2016, it was just a whole different setup. I mean, because there were 2 properties, Ed and Robin Nugent were one of them, that they had the house demolished on their property, they owned that property. There was another property down here on North Elm Street where the adjacent neighbor retained ownership of that property. And then the town purchased 3 of the properties, but that was a different setup because each house was given about $25,000, which you were to buy. The town had, if they wanted to, buy the house and tear it down with that $25,000. So there were 3 houses that we did that on.
Yeah.
And so it's just a little bit different process this time.
So that would, and I think all town councils welcome to that meeting, but I think since we hear different stories, Sarah is the end result. I mean, it stops at her desk. I think it would be in everybody's best interest if she was in a meeting and the property, the people that the property affects are at the meeting and we're at the meeting and everybody understands the process here, exactly how it goes down. But I would not totally disagree with your process. The only thing that I would make clear is that the demolition cost is more than what she quoted you. And our understanding is if we receive the grant, it would be for the full demolition of the property. Is that what you understood?
I thought I understood a lot.
It goes out to bid, it goes out for bids, and then I think we have to obtain at least 2 or 3 bids. Is it 3? Is it 2? 2 or 3 bids, and then you have to accept the lowest of those.
And
So.
the 10 to 15,000, I did not give her the actual address of the property. I was just asking just generalized questions about it, and that was on average. She said it 10,000 to 15,000.
So what is your concern? Are you wanting the light to tear down and you retain the property? Is that what you're wanting to do?
So we bought the property in 2020, right as COVID was beginning, with the intentions of demolishing it and adding to our yard for the kids to play in, just to have more space. Since then, our jobs have completely changed, and we are still working on paying off the loan that we acquired the property with. It's just a personal loan, so there's no mortgage or anything against it. So originally when we purchased it, it was gonna be a year or two and it was gonna be demolished. COVID happened, job changes happened. That was no longer an option. So I still would like it demolished. There's animals and things in it. We have just this month had somebody taking care of some of the stray cats that are in it. They have captured and relocated 10 cats and 2 raccoons out of that area. I won't say that they were all from that house directly, but from that area. So I would like to get it demolished, yes. My concern is if we do not retain it, the person that is also interested in it, his intention is to park cars there and work on cars. He has already built a structure and already works on cars, and so I don't want it to just turn into an open lot full of vehicles and things and people there all day and night and dropping off cars. And I'm wanting to maintain a safe environment for my kids, and if there's people that close that I don't know, that I don't trust, I have an issue with that. And that is why from the beginning we bought it, because it was for sale previously and it was more than realistic to what we paid for it, simply because I didn't want someone else to end up that close to
So
myself.
you have another option, you can just sell it, correct? You're
Yeah,
not
and we
talking-
get contacts, several times for the We Buy Any House and that type of thing, but for the community, I don't know that that would be the best option.
I guess one comment to your concern, I'm assuming that property is zone residential. I might be under a bad assumption.
It is.
So a business cannot operate on a residential property,
Not a
so.
business though.
But if he's doing business there, then he'll be cited as doing business there, and then that becomes a big issue for him, doing business in a residential area.
Unless he
If
classifies it as hobbies though.
Um,
There's some things to look into there. We'll leave it at that.
So, yeah, we'll have to, I mean,
So you guys bought it with the intention of doing your own project.
Yes.
Things changed and now becomes a public project to help get that out of the way.
We started allowing some of the downtown historical buildings to use the materials from that house to restore their facilities on the main street so that they looked presentable and that they were historically restored with age-appropriate materials so that it was still that historic building. And in doing that, that is when the building, just the structure totally changed in appearance and structurally, which at the time we thought it not a big deal, we're gonna tear it down anyway. So we would rather, donate these supplies to making downtown historically preserved. And we allowed, some of the wood siding to come off underneath of the white siding. He had taken out the different windows, the door frames.
I understand that. I'm not going to be overly harsh here, but on the flip side of that, you've made some decisions that didn't pan out for whatever reason, and now we're coming to the town or to Grant to try to fix this problem.
Well, and it is still my intention to demolish it.
Yeah.
But I have to pay off the loan prior to being able to do that.
And it's creating an eyesore in the town, and you're subject to fines coming up probably through that. So there's,
And I can sell it to someone else and get out from underneath
Yeah.
of it. But, and if that's the best option for me, but I don't think that's the best option for the town. And I want to be, an active, supportive community, because we have worked very hard as a community to set a certain culture and a certain presence. And I don't want someone from the outside coming in and.
So if the town took it and we had to take possession of it for 5 years, you're okay with that? And then you're okay with the fact if we sell it to somebody else during that 5 years?
Well, if you sell it during that 5 years, you would have to pay
Or
back
however
the.
that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to speak more on that, and maybe we can come up with an agreement to where, you know, the town buys it, and then after 5 years, we have opportunity to buy it back first before someone else,
I'm
but,
not sure that we can make arrangements like that ahead of time. If we own property, there's probably a process that has to be set.
Probably with the town, yes.
If
Probably
the
have to
town owns it,
solicit bids
we're
and-
just not gonna be able to make a deal 5 years out, but you get first option of refusal on that
On all
property.
the other properties that we had, it was a sealed bid and it was advertised and people could come in and do their sealed bid to buy the properties and we had the right to refuse all of them if they
And
weren't.
I think this could be a situation too, that if, you know, it just has to be cleaned up. I mean, that's what we're looking for is community standards, and if it's already taken this long from 2020 and we've gotten complaints on it, and, you know.
we've only started getting notices the last 6 months or so, it's not been.
It's because we
an
now
issue.
have an active commissioner.
Sure.
Well, I appreciate you to bring the information to us, and I think, along with, I would agree with Ryan that a meeting will be set up with the blight community, you know, those in the, that have that situation, and because it seems like this is an evolving situation. We're getting new information today from what we previously knew about the project, so we'll make sure, if you could make sure to leave your information or that we have access to.
Yeah, it's very nice of them.
We'll make sure to include you in that and make that an evolving process.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to council action. I have ordinance number 7, 2024, the flood damage prevention ordinance is in your stack.
I move to suspend the rules that we may introduce and adopt in the future.
Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we suspend the rules. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Terry, does this come from your desk?
The ordinance?
Yes.
Yes.
And this is in response to the FEMA
Yeah, this is
interaction.
And Chris and Terry and I met, and essentially we adopted their proposed ordinance. We didn't see any reason to try to get cute with it and change any wording. This is directly what he received. Obviously, the town of Hagerstown is the participant and all that, but this is the exact ordinance that was presented as a model. So that's what we decided to use.
Any questions regarding it? And then Terry, this will get us set, right? This will bring us up to.
According to Savannah Riley, who's the representative of our district of FEMA, yes, we were on the computer face-to-face for a couple of hours and we went through all of it, and it is acceptable.
Do I have a motion to adopt this ordinance?
No, we did, but we
suspended
suspended.
the rules.
I make a motion that we adopt ordinance 7-2024 flood damage prevention ordinance presented by our building commissioner.
Second.
So properly moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 7, 2024, the flood damage prevention ordinance. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Moving on now to the AIM Medical Trust rates. That was also in your stack. And Julie, it's correct that it did not go up this year.
Went up 3%. We have an increase.
Okay, that was it in that one.
Yeah,
Okay.
they make it sound like we're not, but we do.
action we need to take with this then, or is it
You just
just?
have to agree, that you want to read.
Review the-
Yeah.
So, comment, can I make a comment? And I might be wrong, so
Yes.
Julie, correct me. So, if we agree to this agreement, we gotta keep it for a year.
Mhm.
I would like to suggest, it's only a suggestion, I'd like to suggest that in January, we put out this for bid. We have to let them know by April, right, am I right?
Right.
Yeah, we have to let them know by next April if we're going to continue or if we're going to discontinue. So even though you sign it now, you really have to give them a 6 months notice or so before you can get out of it. And we just not evaluated whether this is still good, not good. I'm not saying it's bad, but we have had some increases as we went along, and it might be, we don't know whether we have a good deal or a bad deal. So my recommendation is to at least get a couple people to at least evaluate and see if they would be interested in our business, which I assume they would because it's pretty sizable. At least get that looked at. Because once we get past April, if we wait too late, once we get past April, it really doesn't matter whether you approve it now or not.
Is
You're
there
in-
any reason why we have to wait till January?
No, you could start now. I'm just worried that
Yeah.
after the first year, rates would go up. So if you get too far in front of it, what the people quote us would not be accurate when we get there. So, because see, you're still, even though you evaluated in the first year, and they tell us in February and March, you can't cancel them until December.
Probably most people would come in and put a bid on that, would figure that into their,
Yes,
hopefully.
hopefully. But I think,
Yeah.
I don't care whether we start it now or,
Yeah.
yeah,
I just hate for us to lay it on the table and the next thing you know, we forget about it and it's April again.
yeah, we don't want to do that.
Because we've done that before.
So with that said, we really don't have a choice. I'd make a motion that we go ahead and accept the AIM Medical Trust 2025 rates for next year.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the AIM Medical Trust 2025 rates as they stand. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And then we have the introduction tonight of ordinance number 8, 2024, the budget for 2025, which was also in your stack.
I move to introduce ordinance number 8, 2024, the budget for 2025.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we introduce ordinance number 8, 2024, the budget for 2025. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? John, do you have anything else for us?
I do. I think it was after our last meeting, we did get the check for the airport board. It was like $5,600, something like that. For the damage to the electrical control box by the semi. So we did get that, so that's good news. Been working, as I mentioned, with Chris and Terry on unsafe building. So I've got a packet for each of you tonight. Thank you. So you see the binder clip and then a series of stapled documents behind. So the one on top with the red, that is kind of a proposed template that I've given to Terry to kind of fill in the sections that are in red, specific to each property. And then the top page is really just essentially truly a cover letter, fairly generic for each property, but then behind it is you'll see the list of violations. And so we put the property address there and then some instructions. And then below that in the black, so you see the Indiana code citation there, 36794. That's in Indiana code and your ordinances essentially adopt that. the definition of an unsafe building and an unsafe premises. So if there's a piece of property that does not have a building on it, but has some other condition that is dangerous or public nuisance, you can take action on that. And then the various other ordinances below or behind that. And so then Terry can kind of pick and choose and customize each letter based on the specific violations that he finds, because, you know, to Terry's credit, he's been sending out letters, but sometimes they haven't had, you know, the specifics in there, because you've got to give the property owner a reasonable indication of exactly what the issues are. So I'm hoping this will kind of standardize it. Now, the next step is, and I know Terry's eager to move everything forward, is once an owner is notified, you'll see there they have 15 days. They either need to execute an agreement to correct the violations or file a formal appeal regarding the violation. And then if they don't do that, then we could move forward. And by move forward, your current ordinances, the way that they're set up, the council would be the unsafe building hearing authority. So what that means is your role would be, Terry, as your enforcement agent or authority, would go out and essentially cite and say, this is wrong, this needs to be corrected. That property owner then could ask to come before this body and say, well, I don't agree with that, I have an issue, you know, whatever. And then you guys would actually essentially hear the appeal or the request. Now, we talked about potentially having the town court do that. That still may be an option, but we may, until we all get up to speed on this, may want you guys to do it just so you're comfortable. And then if we want to have the town court involved, we could. But what you guys...
Does our town court have jurisdiction over that?
They do, I believe, since they are a court of record. If your ordinances designate that the town court could be that authority, I think we could do that.
I thought it was just for traffic violations.
Well, and I don't know if your judge would want to do that, but I think if your judge is willing and the court is willing to hear that, they could serve in that capacity. But I think I would recommend your ordinances really aren't that awful. I just don't know that anybody has really tied it all together and taking you guys down a path of, okay, what happens when the letter doesn't work? And that's kind of where we are with a handful of properties, is if the letter doesn't work, then right now, under your current ordinances, you guys are the hearing authority. So you would step in. So, you know, essentially there could be really a trial where Terry would present, you know, here's my property record search showing, you know, what's going on, here's the pictures, here's all these things. And then that would open up the door for fines or immediate action to secure the property at the owner's cost, put a lien on the property, those kinds of things. So what's behind that template are 4 letters to the folks that Terry designated to me. And each one of those is a little bit customized based on his notes, the issues that he found. So we could send these letters out. But I want to make you all aware for a couple reasons. One, I know Ms. Coffin is here, and she would be one of those receiving a letter, and I know she's been very cooperative and at least communicating with you guys. So you may or may not want to, you know, really start to escalate that. One of the others, there's one in here to Wiper. He's the last one. Wiper Corporation. Mr. Gupta there, he is a noted tax sale buyer, seller, wheeler, dealer. But there are some notes in the file that they at least had communicated with Terry fairly recently about doing some things. And I don't know, Terry, is there any update? Have they done anything?
No, they put it on the market. They want to sell their property. They don't want to fix it.
Okay. So that property's on the market, so we can still send a letter to them, and then if we get something of record, then that's gonna attach, and obviously any buyer is still gonna have to comply. And then the other property is the Teeter Road property, which I think I saw was maybe on Chris's list or Terry's list for tonight. And I think the council had expressed some interest, but I don't know where that stands. So I guess my message is I want to make sure that Terry's efforts are unified with the council's efforts and your thought processes. so that he's not going off too fast, which I think is possible, and keep you guys informed on what's going on and what the next steps would be. So if we send out these letters and the 15 days goes by, what we would do next is we would do property record searches on each of these properties, because right now we're just notifying the owner. But if there is a mortgage or there are other types of liens out there, we have to notify all those people before we really start to get aggressive. Because they may have a right in that property. They may not know, if it's a mortgage holder, they may not know what's going on. And if they find out, I mean, that may be exactly what we want, because the bank may come in and say, look, you've got to fix this or we're going to foreclose. And then, that may actually help us. But I wanted to kind of bring you guys up to speed with what Chris and Terry and I have been working on. Really the only action that I would want you guys to consider tonight is really just authorize Terry to send out these letters, some or all of them.
And I like that idea, but I don't want to tie his hands to send these letters out. When he's moving, he needs to move.
So typically, that's why I did this template. So he will be able to send the letters out without your blessing. So the analogy I might use is he's the police officer. So he's there with the radar gun, he writes the ticket. If someone objects to the ticket and wants to have, come in, this is where they would come to. And even though he's your employee, you would be the body that hears and just makes essentially a judgment call that he do everything right, that he check all the boxes before he brought you in.
As one council member, I think we've encouraged him to do this, and we should back that and support that. So if it's a process where we have to come in here and sit in here a hearing, then I think that's our job.
So what happens if these properties are part of the grant program too? So what if we get in the middle of this whole process and then the grant process comes in and now we got to follow the process of the grant?
Well,
Is the grant going to supersede us, and does that get us in trouble? Have we got ahead of ourselves? So I'm trying to understand where these fit with the grant. Do we have two things going on at once with the very same properties that complicates this thing?
But I think not all the properties that we're talking about is going to be on the grant. So I think that would be determined at a hearing. And if if they're in a grant process and it's legit, the paperwork's filed and they're moving forward in the grant, then we don't have to move forward particularly on that particular property.
How many of these are in the grants, Chris?
3, Terry, unless Terry did the fourth one. Did you do the fourth one yet, Terry?
When you say in the grants, paperwork's been filed and the people are on board with it.
Paperwork,
The owners are on board with it.
Well, we've done at that point, we've ordered the search so that anybody who's got any interest in it has been notified. Like you said, it may be a mortgage holder or whatever. And at that point,
He's asking, have we submitted the grant paperwork for any of these properties?
currently,
Right now, the
No.
property's in question, and that's off the table.
right.
So these appraisals we got to do I thought the grant
Three-
paperwork had
three.
a deadline.
3 in process.
Okay, so I gotta get this straight.
Yeah.
You say, no, we haven't. We had a deadline to get this grant paperwork in.
It's
The
been
grant-
extended.
But is 3 of these in or not in? Is 3 paperwork in?
No, we
still all on your
started. Yeah,
desk.
the EDC is aware of them, they are started, yeah.
They're started, so we don't have the paperwork yet. And are the owners of the property willing to let the grant take the properties down?
That's a question for Terry.
The one on 150, no. We're gonna say, at the moment, there's resistance on all 4.
Then that's off the table. And when you move forward with this process.
Did you say there was resistance on all 4? Well, I mean, Ms. Coffin's here. I mean, I think she's willing to pursue the grant.
Okay, then that's, all right, then that's fine. I mean, I'm not trying to speak for Ms. Coffin.
Right. Well, I want to make sure we're.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I want to make sure. I get confused on this thing. I thought our grant paperwork was in while we was doing such a rush, and that paperwork had to be in, so the paperwork isn't in.
It's still in process, yeah.
Process where? Here or there?
Here, I mean, it's very complex. You've seen the list, there's like 16 items.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The EDC is not easy to work with.
I realize.
Yeah, we're not saying that. I was just saying, I don't want this grant process that's dragging feet to hold us back on moving forward to get these properties corrected in this town. That's what I'm saying.
And I'd also add that there's 4 extremely different scenarios with each of the properties. You have one absentee landlord in Florida, you have one landlord in Richmond that doesn't give a crap about the property, you have another landlord that's actually trying to sell, or another parcel is trying to sell the property where a relative has been put in a nursing home. I mean, there's 4 very different scenarios. So it's really complex.
So that becomes a case by case.
It really does. It really
and that's
does.
fine. I mean, we got a process. We need to move forward with that process. Because what's going to happen is, well, we're going to give this guy a little bit more because he's trying to sell it. This one, they're thinking about the grant. Next thing you know, we're sitting back here a year from now and we still got the same problems. Because that's why we're here now talking about it.
So I want to understand something in this process, John. So let's just say we go through the process and you contact the mortgage people. And we've done everything possible and they said, listen, you can have it. So they give all 4 properties to the town. Now the town's got to take them down. They're unsafe properties, correct? We either got to fix them up or take them down. If they're unsafe properties for the property owners and we become the property owners, then they're still unsafe buildings, correct?
Well, generally speaking, yes. I mean, you don't have to take them. I mean, they can't force you to take the properties, but your goal as a council is to clean up the town. At the end of the day, if they offer that, that might be the best solution, is to say, we'll just take it, we'll solve the problem. It's not great, we don't want to have to pay for it, but we'd rather have site control and we'd rather solve the problem. But that's a decision you guys have to make. They can't make you take the property. You can tear it down and put a lien against it, and then it go through a tax sale, and it may be one of those that goes through a tax sale every year for 100 years. Some of them I've seen just nobody wants to buy because nobody wants to deal with it. But that's where, unfortunately, government and business are 2 different things, and it may not make a lick of sense for anybody to buy some of these properties, but you guys, need to solve the problem to make them safe. So taking ownership might be the best option, but they can't force you to take ownership. You can put a lien against it and do what you need to do, but that'll be a decision for you all if you actually want to own it. But I would tell you generally you're a little ways away from that right now, because what would happen next is if nobody does anything, we send out these letters, nobody does anything, we would ask for a hearing. So we would set a hearing before you guys, notify everybody, and then.
So we're months into it anyway, if we follow this process.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be taken care of next month.
No,
right.
And there should be a process.
Right, so you gotta do the search, notify people, and then you can say, okay, Terry's gonna come in and say, at this property, these 4 things need to be corrected, here's what I think the cost is gonna be. And then you guys, as the Unsafe Building Hearing Authority and the council, will decide, okay, we wanna do that, we wanna demolish the whole thing, this is what it's gonna cost, we're gonna put a lien on, and this is what we're gonna do.
But if we hold off on any of these identified properties that we currently have before us because of potential grant possibilities that we may or may not get, or it gets drug out even further. So why not go ahead and start this process, get the ball rolling? If the grants come in and that changes some of the process, maybe it doesn't. And then the complications, we just have to work through on a case-by-case basis.
Right, and I think that's a reasonable approach. The only one that you might want to hold off on is because you have somebody that's been here a couple meetings and communicating, would be the cough fund. The flip side of that is just go ahead and send a letter, start the clock, and then you can always pull back. And
we're months down the road on it anyway.
Yeah, so you can always pull back and say, well, we don't need to do anything, we're going to get the grant, and we don't need to have a hearing, we don't need to.
Right, if that comes through, then.
Right, you got the grant and you got the money.
Everybody's happy.
Right.
But on the properties that don't.
Right.
We need to just.
Right, and it sounds like the other 3, from what I know about them, that's probably going to be unlikely that any of that's going to, unless they somehow get bundled into the grant and they're willing to play ball there, but it doesn't sound like that's a likely scenario.
Can I ask a question? Is there any ARP funding left from when that was awarded a couple years ago?
Yes, there's several funds are outstanding with that. We have some tied up with the water project at the moment, but there are still some funds available through.
Because blight demolition is a qualified expense for ARPA funds.
We understand that. We just made a pretty big commitment to a water project.
That's fine,
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure you were aware.
Yeah.
So then, either we move forward with these, and that's the recommendation of the council, or we delay them for a period, right?
Right, or you say send these three, and I don't know that you need to make a motion tonight. You can, give some instruction to Chris and Terry, but if you want to make a motion to say send all four and start the clock, we can do that and do that tomorrow.
That would be my motion, that we move forward and send the letters out as presented by the building commissioner.
So properly moved and seconded that the commissioner move forward with the identified letters. All those in
Do you want all four?
All four.
All four?
All four.
all four. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
And I know Terry's got, I think, some questions or recommendations on some ordinances, and he's right after me anyway, so I guess I'll close my comments.
Terry, floor is open.
Well, I've given you the normal, the top page is the normal commissioner's report. The second page, I would very much appreciate if we could run in the Western Wayne News as soon as possible. And the pages 3 and 4, I would appreciate if it was possible to review and adopt or reject.
The one you looked at today, did they have one or the one?
There's
Yes or no?
permit. No, there's no permit. That's the second one, which is a very short period of time.
Do we need a motion for him to do this or just tell him to?
So, I think, Terry, you said page 2 you want published,
Yes.
and why do you want it published?
So that it's public record.
Well, I mean, it starts out and says, as per ordinance, permits must be issued and paid. And then as per 51-110, all work is to be done. So I think you have ordinances in place, which would have already been published and probably on the website and all that. So I don't know that you need to,
The problem is that there are so many people that are unaware of that. And there are so many actions taking place that they can say, well, I didn't know.
well, all due respect to the Western Wayne News, even if you publish it, you're gonna have people say that.
Agreed.
So I don't know that that gets you too far down the road. I mean, if you want to, I mean, we could put just sort of a generic, we could write a little article for their consideration of publication and just say that, just remember, these things are a point, but I don't know that any official publication is gonna do anything, because really you're just saying, these are our ordinances, and maybe you'd be better off to have a little pamphlet to hand people as they come in and ask for permits to say, here's top 10 things you need to know, or here's our requirements. I mean, that ought to be part of the situation anyway.
Terry, does the 163-09, does it say it has to be issued and paid for 24 hours in advance? Does it say that?
I'm pretty sure it does. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I know you're eager to get all these things corrected, and I appreciate that, but I think you have the tools you need. We just got to figure out how to help you lay it out in day-to-day situations, because I mean, like, the folks that didn't pay for the permits, I mean, to me, they ought to be paying for the permits when they come get them. And the permit shouldn't be issued until you have payment.
They don't come in. Let me give you the worst case scenario that we're dealing with. There is a demographic of builders that thinks because of their particular situation, they don't have to follow the rules. So what they've been doing is they've been subverting the process, and they'll send the customer in and say, hey, if you go get the permit, we'll come do your work. Even Indiana, to the best of my knowledge, says that's not right. Any contractor, put it this way, I was personally a contractor, and any other contractor I've ever dealt with has to provide some proof of either licensing or a knowledge of the subject. They have to provide liability insurance to protect the customer. That just protects our community. This particular demographic doesn't believe in insurance, and they are not putting their insurance, they're going and they're doing all the work, but there's no protection for the customer. And I firmly believe we need to protect our community.
So when
Because they are
get-
popular builders, if you understand what I mean.
So when they get a permit, do they have to show that they're bonded or have insurance to get a permit?
I'm personally requiring that as they come in. And everybody that I've asked that of has had no problem, because every other jurisdiction they've worked in, I can show you a list of insurance right now. It's common. It's in Muncie, it's in Centerville, it's in Richmond, it's in Fort Wayne, it's in Indianapolis.
So I guess explain to me again, I mean, you just said that people that come in give you that stuff and they're used to it, but you're saying there's a group that sends their customer in to get the permit? Well, so then the customer's representing to you that they're doing the work themselves?
I don't think the customer understands what they're representing. I'm not going to mention names, but I told the particular customer when they came in, I said, you know, I will issue you this permit if you want, but you have to understand that you're releasing your contractor of any liability.
So you know when they come in that they have a contractor. They're telling you that.
The contractor is supposed to get the work. They're supposed to get the permit, not the individual, unless the individual is doing the work.
Right.
You can't stop the do-it-yourselfer.
Right, sure, I understand that. But I guess,
What if nobody comes in and gets a permit?
I mean, if nobody finds out the work's ever been done, then no harm, no foul, I guess. But if, obviously, later on, if you find out the work's been done, then obviously that's an issue with your ordinances.
So John Doe can buy a pickup truck and a drill and a saw and come and start a project and get it so screwed up that he can't finish, and then he takes the money and leaves. What's the customer do?
I mean, I hear you, but I guess I'm back to who's coming in to get the permit. The customer's coming in to get the permit, and they're telling you they have a contractor?
Not always, no.
Okay. So, I mean, I guess I would like to look at your form, your permit, to see what the customer has to fill out, because to me, if I'm a homeowner and I mean, to me, that ought to be questioned somewhere right after their name. You know, are you doing the work yourself, or are you having a contractor? If you have a contractor, please provide name and information. And then that's a red flag to you to say, well, you have a contractor, I can't give you a permit. They need to come in because I need to make sure they're bonded, insured, and all of that, unless you have a pre-approved list of contractors that you regularly maintain that you can say, okay, well, I know John Smith and I know he's got insurance and he's local and...
And that's the goal, is to build that list of credible contractors, yes.
Okay. But I guess ordinance-wise, to me, that's more of like an implementation type thing. I don't know that your ordinances are that far off, or that the council needs to do anything. I think we just need to make sure that you've got processes in place in your office and the form is capturing the information, and you know you can make a good decision to say, look, okay, and if the customer comes in and represents to you that they don't have a contractor, and then they get a contractor, then that's on them. and we would be able to pursue the homeowner. But we can't safeguard everything, I don't think. But, I mean, I know that's not what you want to hear, but I don't know. Somebody's got to represent to you whether or not a contractor's involved. And if the customer says there's no contractor involved, and then the
We're going
contractor,
down a rabbit hole.
What if the contractor comes in and says, I don't have insurance, I don't have proof of license, give me a permit, I'm gonna go do this job. Do we have anything to hold that contractor responsible to?
I believe you do. Because I looked, and some of that I think was in the unsafe building ordinances. But I guess if we don't know, I guess what I'd like to, let me look and see if I can find that, because obviously I've been working on the other unsafe building issues. And I know that's a question you had, but my guess is your ordinances are going to have something in there with some teeth that say you can refuse them a permit because they don't have insurance. And at this point, if I were you, I'd just tell them, I'm not giving you a permit because you don't have insurance, and come get me.
Okay.
I think they need to have insurance.
Terry, the last 2 pages of your clip here, these are things that you've looked through.
Those are in the ordinance that should be reviewed.
Okay.
So where it says to disconnect the utilities, if it's vacant for 6 months, I mean physically disconnect everything. So then if that property somewhere sells down the road, before those properties get reconnected to utilities, does that property then subject to being brought up to code? Is that
Yes,
correct?
sir. I'm one of those. I bought a property that had been shut down
Yeah.
for 2 years. And when I purchased it, before electricity could be turned on, and it wasn't in code any place, so I had to start at the pole and go all the way.
So I just want to make sure that that was in the ordinance.
Yeah, it should be, because, yeah, I didn't get caught, it was just part of the rules that I had to go by.
I would say since there's a significant amount of these, maybe wise to call a work session sometime in the next couple of weeks. We can sit down, we can have a discussion over them and kind of get a game done with that. And then John, just a question that I had on the public notice. If he wants to send something out, can he do that as the commissioner with his funds to publish in the newspaper, or does it have, because I mean, it has ordinance identified in that, or does it have to come through us? Publish it.
Well, I think if I were you, I would want to review it at least, because I think you need to make sure that it's accurate, that if he wants to publish something as just a general information, here are some things that, you know, and I don't know if there was ever an announcement that he came back and joined us, and maybe, you know, could do kind of a press release that he's back as of, and some things that he's going to emphasize in his role as building commissioner. Be a way to put a more positive spin on it, and rather than just, hey, we're going to smack your hand if you do these 12 things. But he could have some quotes in there about things he wants to emphasize, and that kind of thing. So it might be a little more of a positive twist.
When you go looking at our rules and what is allowed or not, look specifically where nobody ever comes in and gets a permit. And then, I mean, basically, what you're saying is we're kind of required to drive the streets and see what's going on. And if we find that, then what do we do?
Okay.
I mean, somebody's got a building, a third built, and they have no permits, and nobody come in, and so I'm looking at both sides of it. The person that comes in and gets the permits and goes by the rules, okay, you need to protect them too. I mean, why should some people buy the permits and follow the rules, and then some people don't? And if they don't get caught, so be it.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, like, if it's all interior work, I mean, I could see somebody getting away with that. If it's a lot of exterior work, I mean, hopefully somebody would notice and drive by a roofing job or something and say, well, we never pulled a permit for that. But if somebody wants to remodel a bathroom, and they probably could get away with that.
Any other questions? Okay. Brad sent the email, they didn't have the meeting for the EDC. Wayne County Chamber.
I have been notified that they have selected somebody else to represent us. And I asked them who that was, and they said they'd get back to me, but they never did. So I'm reporting that I'm not going to the meetings. They got somebody else to go to the meetings, but that person is unknown to me. So I don't really know who's representing Hagerstown. I just was told somebody was. I will reach back out to them and see if I can get a name.
Have Fred for Parks and Recreation. Keith, please.
Couple things. First, apologize you didn't get my call report. I'm having some technical difficulties with my computer program. I'm trying to get that figured out, but I'll have that to you very soon. School got started. We had a good start there. No issues. SROs at the high school he's been focusing a lot on school bus arm violations, which is kind of typical at the beginning of the year. For whatever reason, I guess they forget they have to stop over the summer. So we're working hard to remind them on that. I think you've seen the email a while back. They did do the repairs at the railroad crossing, but I still feel the one in front of Auto Car is still not acceptable. I'm not sure if Chris has had contact with the railroad guy yet, but supposedly he said he would get with Chris, and I guess there's some kind of a dispute about who's responsible for what right there. But like I explained to them, I find it hard to believe that that's on us when there's railroad tracks going through that section. I don't know how that's supposed to be on us, but the other one on South Street and everything that one turned out well. The only other thing I had was the new vehicle is in. It's at the safety systems in Richmond right now, being upfitted. Like I made you guys aware at the very beginning of the year, the amount that I requested in the budget last year, when we do our budget in July, that's months and months before the state bid price comes out. So it was kind of a guess. So they raised the vehicle price across the board, not just the one we got, but every brand or make. It jumped up about $8,000 from the previous year. So I had initially had $50,000 for my budget. I thought the vehicle was going to be around 42 to 44, which would have left me the remaining to cover the upfitting. Because also, like I explained, when they did away with the Chargers and we're going to the SUVs or trucks, the equipment won't transfer from one to another, so we have to start over with that. So long story short is I'm about $8,000 short from being able to complete that due to the increase in the cost of that vehicle. When we got the final vehicle, the cost was $49,825. I had $50,000 budgeted, so it's going to be somewhere in the $7,000 to $8,000 range to get everything upfitted and good. So as of right now, I'm short on that. So my question is one thing I guess we could do is I can come back to you in December and see where my overall budget's at that point. If I can cut and save over the next couple months some money here and there to try to dwindle that down, I can ask back in December when I have a more accurate shortfall. However you think we should move forward with that.
Keith, did you say there was going to be a car we're going to sell?
Correct.
So
There's gonna be at least one, possibly two. I'm just trying to figure out the logistics. Either the current K9 car, which is the Charger that Tyra has, is gonna go to an SRO, and then we'll have one of the 2012s to auction off. We still have the reserve car that we could auction off. But my thoughts is on that is that vehicle really is not costing us very much to have, and it has been very beneficial to have that available when guys are on vacation. Reserve comes here, uses that car, covers shift, etc., without having to go to houses and switch vehicles and all that. But if you would prefer me get rid of that car, we can do that also. That car, keep in mind, is 10 years old and has 120-some thousand miles, so we're not going to get a whole lot out of it. I feel like we get more value out of it using that one how it is. But either way, we will, in worst case scenarios, we're going to have the 2012 that we can auction, or one of the other options I'd explained is reaching out to other departments to see if they might be interested in buying the K9 car that's completely outfitted, turnkey for them, possibly generate more money for selling it that way, and then just keeping the SRO car where it's at, and then the next cycle of new vehicles start working to rotate that. So
Julie, when we sell that car, auction that car, sell it to another department, whatever, when we do that car, that money comes back into the general, so, and his budget comes out of the general, or can be designated to that.
Yep.
correct.
So I guess my thoughts is determine the best way to get rid of the K9 car, see what that generates, get it to see where you're at the end of the year, and then, I mean, maybe the car will generate $8,000.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm fine with that. That just didn't feel like that was my decision. I wanted how you guys want to do that, but I think that's a good approach overall. So I'll kind of keep you updated on that process, where we're at, and then we'll have more definitive numbers in December. By then we'll have figured out what's going where. Other than that, that's all that I had for you.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Rick, fire department.
Well, August was probably one of the busiest months we've had so far this year. We had a total of 28 runs, but compared to this time last year, we're down in runs, which is a good thing. So, but that included, the busy month was our, we had trainings and Jubilee days we helped out with, so that all works out there. So hopefully, of course, the MS runs continue to be the leading category. So we did do our annual fundraiser Saturday out here, which I think we did quite well. We did better than what we did last year. So that money will go into the donation account, which is established by ordinance. So it's where that money goes to. Our AFG grant that we applied for new radios, we've not heard anything. They're still announcing those awards, which they come out every Friday. We have not received any denial letter yet, so well, look at it, we're still in the running for it. But us and about another probably 3,000 or 4,000 or more volunteer and full-time fire departments across the country are still in the running for the grant. Our station grant, I know we kind of let that go last year for the your water grant, which I'm glad you guys got that. It was much needed. So I am going to start looking out for other sources to look at working on the fire station and maybe remodeling that or doing something with it. So it's past due for repairs and a remodel. Our membership, we have one
volunteer. He's been on the department for several years. He's moving out of the area, so he's turned in his resignation. I hate to see him go. Although his son is on the department and is going through the hiring process for RFD. So hopefully he will be a good firefighter for RFD and still be able to help us out too when he's not working there. But we are still down 3 firefighters from our 25-man roster. So, and this month I just want to remind everybody about 9/11. It's coming up soon, so just please, remind everybody that all the sacrifices that police, fire, and EMS made that day. So just keep them in your thoughts, and it's not going away. There's still firefighters and people that worked out there on the pile that are still dying of cancer today. So, and that's all I got.
Thanks, sir. Mike, airport board.
I'd like to thank John for finally getting us reimbursed for the accident last year. It took a little while, but he managed to get it done. We had our annual inspection from the NDOT last month. The only thing they deemed us on was the phone isn't working. So Frontier's coming up tomorrow to fix that. Then we'll have our new operating certificate. Only other thing is the EAA is sponsoring a fly-in and camp out from the 20th to the 22nd. So, well done.
Thanks, sir. Advisory Plan Commission.
Yes, we had a meeting and we did talk about ordinances. So Terry, I want to make clear that the ordinances that you gave the town council here, we determined that some of the ordinances are for the plan commission to address, and some of the ordinances is not for the plan. The plan commission does not have any authority over them ordinances. Town council has the authority over those ordinances changes. So these changes here, are they for the town council? They don't fall underneath the plan commission?
As I understood from our meeting, and John, I'm not trying to throw you under the bus, as I understood from John, it was to be presented to you guys before we could do anything. And if I'm
I think
wrong.
those are all referencing town
Ordinances. Yeah, town ordinances. So that's why you might be asking the question, why did Terry bring this to us? We kind of come to the conclusion that Plan Commission only has authority or responsibility for certain ordinances, and then the town is responsible for other ordinances, and these fall underneath the town council. So that's why they was brought here, and why, I just wanted to make it clear why the Plan Commission didn't take responsibility for this, because we did talk about these, and it come to our understanding that, okay, some of these we can address and bring recommendations, and some we can't, and these are ones that we cannot, as a Plan Commission, bring recommendations. They have to come, they have to be done by town council. And so we talked about that. We talked a little bit about futuristic things, maybe what they're looking for and hoping, but that was kind of the ordinances and what we have authority over and what we can bring here. And because Terry was asking us and we was trying to get a handle on how we do that, and that was the big discussion of the meeting.
Chris.
Alrighty, down at the wastewater treatment plant, I think I brought it up at the last meeting that Crystal had passed her test. She is officially licensed now. She is as of September 1st, officially the wastewater treatment plant operator. Up until that time, Jim Soper had been filling in, and we also had him fill in after Jeb quit, between when Jeb quit and Luke became an actual licensed operator. We've been doing some updates down in the office and the lab area at the wastewater treatment plant. The water department, the big news was getting awarded the $700,000 Okra grant, and so that's something that we're continuing to work on. Our next steps with that will be, I think Mike said that Okra emailed you like an acceptance letter that you're supposed to respond to, or that they will be emailing you that.
I haven't seen
You haven't seen it yet, so he said you just need to electronically sign that and get it back to them.
Okay.
And then Mike also said the next couple steps that we need to be working on is we need to have a grant administration contract, which he's going to propose that and put that together. And if we have any kind of a special meeting or work session coming up, that would probably be the ideal time to have him come and present that. So we'll need to keep in close contact as far as when we're gonna have that next meeting with him. as far as anything else on that, I think the next thing that we also need to do, and I know Julie's been working on this some, is the financing aspect of that with the Indiana Bond Bank, and then that would also be Sean, Klein, Peter Wright, Julie that you're working with on that. So the big news, the electric department, they've been doing a ton of tree trimming in Graceland Heights, and they've really got a lot of the easements cleaned out tree-wise. I have sent out letters to property owners about mini barns, trying to get those pulled back out of the easement. And so we're also working with Burns Corporation on trying to get some of the really hard to access electric lines back on the slope surface, trying to get those located underground. So we're working on that. Streets Department, Community Crossings grant will be announced in late October or early November, so we're hoping to get some money to work on our streets in the spring. We've got Danny Davis up on the north side replacing the curbs on different blocks there on North Washington Street. He's working on that. That's much needed as well. Keith mentioned briefly about the railroad tracks on South Washington Street. I did meet with Norfolk and Southern on that. There's a couple different issues all there together. There's the main railroad line, which they own. There's the spur, which they do not own, but they said that they are willing to move it up a couple inches to try to regrade all that slope down there. Another thing that we've got that we need to work on at that railroad crossing is the storm drain there. And if you look on either side, there's a pretty deep storm drain drop off there. So there's several things that we're trying to accomplish in that. And I have contacted Kramer Engineering. We've worked with Kramer on some projects before. But as far as trying to figure out the actual grades, because we have not only the railroad crossing itself, it's a pedestrian and a vehicle crossing. Plus we've got the sidewalk, storm drains, the street itself. There's a ton of different things that need to be coordinated down there.
So do we know who owns the spur then?
Supposedly, they said it was originally part of the factory, so I don't know.
Because I mean, if it's not, if
You know-
all they're doing is storing on it, and if it's not their property.
What's interesting about it, I said, can we just cover it up with asphalt? You know, and the guy said no, because we still kind of will pull our equipment over on. So then that's them using it. So my
Charge of rent,
charge of rent. That's right. Yeah.
user fee.
So yeah, that's something we've got to try to work through. And Kramer has a bunch of old maps, ancient maps, like 100 years old, that kind of show some of that stuff. So that's going to be a fun little process to work through. And I put a picture on my report there. That's what the railroad crossing looked like in 1910. And as you can see,
Which direct is that?
that's looking west. Yeah, and over.
I mean, there's no slope to that at all.
Yeah, no, there's no slope to it at all. It's flat, and over the years, like Bob Warner said, every time they come through and redo the railroad tracks, it goes up a couple inches to where it's to the height it is now, and it's significantly high above grade now. So that's something that we're going to have to work through. That's going to take a little bit of coordination and effort to try to get that all resolved. We have had, after our last meeting, a lot of interest in the tree grant and people wanting to remove their trees off of their property now, which that's any kind of tree removal is good with the old trees here. Couple property questions there, and I don't know, that might be something we could discuss at a work session along with some of the blight grant information. As Gary said earlier, we do have that dumpster day on Saturday, September 14th from 9 till noon, and that is on the wastewater treatment plant just south of railroad tracks there on Washington Street.
The curbs on North Washington, was that part of the community crossings?
That was not part of the community crossings, no.
But we were hoping that if we get this next one to do some.
If we get the next one, we'll be doing some curb work on the south side of 38, correct?
Chris, do you want to give I don't know if you ever told him the Lily Oprah grant for the museum that
I did help the museum apply for a Lilly grant. I think I even brought that up at the last meeting. Yeah.
Okay.
And that would be for.
I was sick, I'm sorry.
You were sick. Yeah, that would be for some ADA renovations and that kind of thing to the museum, which would actually make the building a lot more usable than what it currently is.
Questions? Okay. Thanks, sir. Julie, anything from your desk?
Just remember about the ARPA money that you have to use it by the end of the year or have it earmarked for the next 2 years. didn't know.
They're
Yeah.
the water projects.
Yeah, I know, right. That was it. Did you have something?
Anything?
Yeah, I would like to make, I talked to Julie, but she can tell you as well. I'd like to make another motion that we move $25,000 from the electric budget to the MISO line in the electric budget, where we're just making sure that we have future MISO fees covered. So that I'd make a motion to move another $25,000 from the electric fund to the MISO line under the electric, it's all electric fund.
Yep. It's been properly moved and seconded. We move $25,000 from the electric operating budget into the MISO line.
Who seconded? Okay, second.
Seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Yeah. Anything else?
It does sound like we need to probably have a, special meeting, is that what they're called?
I would say we could have a work session just to discuss things.
So we want, the water's come up, which we gotta wait for him to get the stuff, and then we gotta see if Sarah can come to that, to understand the blight. Is there any other things that we need to have in that?
Don't believe so. We can get that organized after. Anything? Next regular council meeting will be Monday, October 7th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. Does everybody have a chance to look at claims?
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. We approve the claims as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.